Thank you, Chairman McKeon, Ranking Member Smith, members of the House Armed Services Committee. I come before you today to testify about the importance of our defense industrial base and specifically about military depots. Right now, we stand at the tail end of two long wars that have stretched our budgets and severely strained our all-volunteer force. As the committee is well aware, hard choices about defense spending will have to be made in the near future. In order to shrink our defense budget to fit a peacetime force, this committee will have to identify programs that are no longer vital to American safety, while at the same time maintain funding for readiness for a myriad of continuing threats. I hope you will join me in supporting replacing the sequester level cuts with a defense budget policy that thoughtfully and appropriately reshapes our fighting forces. Now, depots. Our military depots are a fiscally prudent tool in maintaining readiness. As you set their budget, I urge you to consider the value of depots to the warfighter, the return on the investment that the American taxpayer receives from depots, and the indispensable economic role these facilities play in communities where they are located. In my district alone, the Tobyhanna Army Depot, the Army's only C4ISR communications depot, generates $1.68 in economic activity for every dollar invested. Additionally, every job at Tobyhanna generates 2.5 jobs in the larger community. Letterkenny Army Depot, also in my state, generates over 1.5 local jobs for every employee who goes to work for the base. And in many cases, as with Tobyhanna, depots are the largest employers in their respective congressional districts. Dramatic reductions would economically devastate these communities. I would further ask you to consider the impact sequestration and the FY 2013 continuing resolution have already had on Tobyhanna. 500 people have already lost their jobs. Projected funding is about $100 million below what was originally planned, and funding actually received by the depot is now only about 72% of the revised scaled-back plan. Work stoppages on several key systems will begin occurring next month. Now, to maintain cost competitiveness, the depot has curtailed contracts and canceled its capital investment program for this fiscal year. As the ability of depots to refurbish essential supplies becomes lost because of such costs, the outlook for better integrating our forces through upgraded communications networks and equipment becomes bleaker. As Army Chief of Staff General Raymond T. Adierno stated last August, network upgrades remain the Army's, quote, #1 modernization priority, unquote. Going forward, last year the House voted to cut nearly $2 billion from our military depot budget. Depots are required to run like businesses. They have to win work and remain cost competitive within the private sector. If they can't do so, they have to cut costs. Slashing their operational funding means they're able to do less work, and if overhead costs become too great a percentage of total costs, the facility becomes less competitive when bidding for new work. That leads to the kind of a death spiral that's just a doomsday for a depot. In addition to increasing operational funds, this committee should seek to enforce the 50-50 rule and ensure that the essential go-to-war items are identified so that depots maintain sufficient workload. We should use the oversight power of Congress to ensure that the service branches move quickly to establish new systems that will be supported by depots and that will support depot workloads for decades to come. I urge you to authorize an expansion of the electronic technology that tomorrow's warfighter will need, along with increased direct funding for our nation's military depots. Only a well-equipped, well-supported force will allow America to meet all of its future threats. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much.